I want to solo camp this car in the snow. Now, I love my current simple setup, but it has two issues. One, there's no heating solution. I can't just keep running the car heater. Pretty sure that's bad for the car. I don't want to get stuck in the woods in freezing temperatures. Problem number two, I want to be able to cook a meal inside the car. I don't want to have to put on boots, get outside, and have to cook in the freezing snow. That's not very cozy at all, which means we're going to have to tweak this setup. Now, currently, this is just a two-person sleeping platform. And now, it's a one-person setup. But I do need to figure out a way to get rid of these beams and hopefully make this platform a little lower. There's not much headspace here. Now, luckily, I had some leftover wood. And after cutting it to size, it was pretty wobbly. There was this massive bolt sticking out here that I didn't account for. Much better. And I could now screw in these three legs to create a flat surface. Okay, I'll admit, it's not the prettiest design, but it's rock solid. It perfectly fits this storage container underneath. And I also have this smaller mattress that should fit pretty nicely on here. The back end of the mattress does just lay directly on the front seat, but because it's where my legs go, it's still very comfortable. This is not bad at all. Okay, actually, this gap is really bothering me. That's so much nicer. But anyways, this new bed design gives us a ton of open space here. And what I didn't tell you earlier was that I snuck out to Home Depot and bought some plywood that I will be using for a brand new structure. The side wall of this car was so difficult to work around. There's protrusions and curves you have to account for in like every slab of wood you cut, but to make things even more complicated, the floor in Honda Elements is not flat. It's angled towards the front of the car, so good luck. It took me a lot of measuring from the get-go to make sure I account for everything. Then came all of the cutting, test fittings, back to more cutting and more fitting and more cutting until eventually I had some pieces that looked like this.
We have IKEA at home.
Except without instructions and no easy connections. So I used these metal brackets to begin connecting the wood, which actually worked really well. And once I had my vertical support in, I flipped the whole thing around and screwed in the final piece of the frame. My structure was really taking shape. Okay, before we get this new structure inside of here, I've purchased this luxury $18 textile off Amazon to make the car feel a little warmer. At least mentally warmer. I'm not too sure of the science there if a rug will actually affect the temperature. I didn't realize that I picked a shaggy carpet. I chose this one because of the foam, so it's nice and soft, but nonetheless, this is really nice. It just feels so much more homey and comfortable. Once I confirmed that everything fit, I decided to round out this corner, which made entering and exiting the car so much smoother. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty hyped on this feature and observation. Just look how natural this leg flows. But I then continued the build by facing off with the wall of doom and protrusion once more using my measuring tape. From there, I transferred my measurements onto the plywood, made some cuts, and I now had a few more slabs of wood. Using those same metal brackets, I began to attach the new pieces on the inside of my structure, as well as this very special slab on the outside, which all of this resulted in a pretty sturdy shelf setup. If you kind of squint your eyes and don't look too close at some of these edges and angles, it doesn't even look that bad. And this isn't just the shelf. It also doubles as a countertop that I can use for cooking, fingerboarding, day trading, whatever. The possibilities are truly endless. I've measured these cubbies to fit very specific appliances and gear that I have in mind, but we can get to those in a second. We first have to address the car won't start issue, as well as the locked inside issue. The car starts right up and runs just fine, like 80% of the time. For the other 20%, now, my suspicion was the battery, and if that's the case, batteries and cold weather don't mix well. So the likelihood of the car starting after camping in the snow would be even lower. So to fix that, I went out and purchased this much bigger battery. I took the old one out and then had to do a little retrofitting and finessing. It doesn't sound right, but I think it's okay to put wood under a battery. Also, this new one is like twice the size of the old one, so I don't know. There's blogs from like 19 years ago saying it's fine, but I did manage to squeeze it in, and once it was connected into place, the hopefully that fixes the doesn't start every once in a while issue. Now for the locked inside issue, these cars don't come with a latch to open the trunk from the inside, so you always have to crawl around to go through the door. Fortunately, there's already some research published on how to fix this. I began by popping off this back plastic trim. From there, I attached a wire to this mechanism that releases the latch. I secured that loop with these wire clamps. This is the latch that moves when you pull the handle from the outside. Then I attached this tiny pulley straight to the car. This part felt like cutting edge technology, but I fed the wire through the pulley, and now when you pull that wire, the latch would open. So all that was left was to drill a small hole in the back plastic, feed the wire through the hole, and attach it to this ring with some more clamps. Incredible. Now, back to these oddly shaped cubbies. This open corner perfectly fits a refillable 3-gallon water jug, which conveniently has a dispenser built in. This section will store a battery/electric generator that I purchased. This thing should be able to run any electronics I may need, and eventually it can even be recharged by a solar panel. Now the first thing plugging into that battery will be this mini fridge, which fit nicely into this bottom cubby here. That's pretty good. I do have some other gear going into these empty shelves, but first, I was complaining about headroom earlier, and for that, I have somewhat of a random solution. I realized that this open space right here is just big enough to fit my favorite chair in the world, the now discontinued REI Camp Stowaway low chair. Because this chair sits so low to the ground, it gives me plenty of headroom. And the sitting position, it almost feels like you're in a hammock. It's genuinely comfortable. This thing is a throne fit for kings. Plus, it also folds up, which is pretty great. Now, I've purchased some other vital gear that will help get me through the harsh Sierra Nevada winter, but I'll have to show that to you once we're in the mountains. Just kidding. A couple more modifications, like this luxurious, state-of-the-art paper towel holder, and I also attached some mounting points that connect to the ones that are already built into the car, just so the shelf doesn't move around when I'm driving, and then a couple bungee cords to hold the items inside the shelves. And with that, we were off to a lot more adventure than I thought I had signed up for. That is just unreal. I brought along some window covers, so let's get those up. I even got one for the moonroof in case the ops are in creative mode. The only windows I won't be fully covering are these front ones, and that's because I'm gonna keep them slightly open. But I do have this mesh that I'll be putting over them, which will still offer some privacy, and it'll keep the bugs out. Car's been off for about 20-30 minutes and it is getting pretty cold. So for my heating solution, I've purchased this Korean butane powered heating device that a lot of people on the internet recommended. It's actually like fully Korean. There's not a lick of English on here. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little sussed out with butane burning inside of a car, so I'm gonna use it sparingly and only when I'm awake. I brought this gas monitoring device. It should alert me if things get a little toxic in here. Now, to make sure I don't die from a fire, I did install a fire extinguisher in here. And then in case any ops or animals pull up, I did buy some bear spray. So I believe that covers the big three. But anyways, it's getting nice and toasty in here, so I think it's time for dinner. For my cooking solution, I brought along this propane stove. The gas line runs underneath the countertop through a little niche I cut out where you can connect it to a can of propane. I made sure to bring some cooking supplies like this pan, of course, stainless steel without a non-stick coating, and also a cooler for a few items that I wanted on ice rather than in the fridge. Honestly, more comfortable to cook in here than I thought it would be. Plenty of space on this countertop and more than enough room for me to move around. For my appetizer, I'll be having some lightly toasted bread, salted grass-fed butter, salmon boba on top. A little salty, a little fishy, and just the energy that I'll need to cook up the main course. Got some veggies. This rice comes pre-cooked, which is very convenient. I was actually able to turn off the heater at this point. With a space of this size, the stove alone was emitting enough heat to keep things pretty comfortable. And for the protein, some lobster tail. I've never cooked lobster tail, but I watched a YouTube short that said you gotta slice it open, add some pepper, salt, a little butter, a little oil, and just pop it in a pan for a few minutes. I splashed some lemon in there and then attempted to cut this green onion the best I could, at which point the lobster had cooked through and I could move on to separating the meat from the lobster shell. Of course, I had to plate the dish, make it presentable, and butter pan-seared lobster along with some fried rice. Heater back on, cozy mode initiated with a delicious meal. I mean, come on. Almost forgot the bev. And now it's time for our third and final course for the evening. If I wanted to camp out for a little longer, I'd probably just boil the water on the stove, but I had more than enough battery on this trip to enjoy the convenience and precision of an electric kettle. We're looking at a little open flame cooking here, a very advanced technique. In fact, one that you probably shouldn't do in a car. Dark chocolate s'more and some chamomile tea. Hey! Hello, who is this? Can I help you? Hey! What can I do for you?
Open the door!
How may I help you?
Open the door!
I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Hey, what are you doing?
It's been like 2 weeks since this happened and my heart rate still goes through the roof anytime I watch this back. What you can't really see in this video is that the car that drives up and starts honking actually first fully blocks in my car. Someone comes out of the car with a flashlight, fully just blinding me, so I can't really see what's going on outside. And if you remember, my windows are cracked open, so I try to speak to him and he's just not responding. It's dead silence. He then suddenly starts banging on the window, yelling at me to open the door. He even goes for the handle of the door. And man, once I heard the aggression in his voice, my heart just fully sank. I realized that this was not a friendly encounter, so I reached around from the back and started up the car. I slide in the driver's seat. He gets even more aggressive, starts banging on all my windows, continues yelling at me to open the door. At this point, it got a lot colder, so the snow underneath the car is more frozen. My wheels are spinning in place, not catching traction. He's still blinding me with his flashlight. He aggressively rips off my mesh bug net, keeps banging the window harder and harder until he fully breaks it in. And I'm showered with shards of glass in my face. And praise the Lord Almighty, right at this point, my wheels catch traction and there's just enough of an angle there where I can squeeze past his car, get around him, and get myself out of there. You can see my left eye rapidly blinking here. It was blurry the entire way home, and after getting it checked out, it appears that some of the glass had scratched through my eyeball. I've been going through treatment for that, and I can now see more clearly, which is pretty great. Now, I have no idea what this guy's intentions could have been. My mind goes to maybe he lived in the area, saw my car, thought I was up to no good, but then why block me in and smash through my window instead of just talking to me? I had a whole breakfast planned. I was hoping to enjoy some coffee by the river. Unfortunately, we have this alternate ending, but I don't know, maybe this will inspire some extra caution with this kind of thing. But anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you subscribe, thank you for subscribing. God bless you and your family and your friends.